All right, welcome back to BT here on a Monday morning. We're breaking down Saturday's provincial election. We're going to look at the NDP's big win, a historic one. And for that, we're joined by Gerald Baier from UBC. Gerald, welcome back to the show.
Morning.
So we still have about 1.5 million votes that need to be counted, the mail-in ballots, the advance voting. But do we think that will really change things with the general outcome of the NDP's victory here?
Well, it's about 500,000. Thereabouts that need to be counted. The advance polls were counted on election night, but now we're looking at those mail-in ballots, which were kind of historic in terms of numbers. It doesn't look like that'll make a big change to the overall outcome. Maybe a seat here or there that moves either into the Liberal column or the NDP column based on who was leading at the end of the night on Saturday. But overall, I think it still suggests that there's definitely going to be an NDP majority, and they'll certainly be forming the next government and be able to do some of the things that they wanted to do that John Horgan called this election for to get that stability that he was looking for.
So this gamble ultimately paid off for John Horgan and the NDP party. What were the main contributing factors to the party's success on Saturday?
I mean, it's hard to know exactly what motivated voters to reward the NDP with this majority, for sure. But certainly the performance during the COVID crisis, I think, is something that they've been rewarded for. BC really stands out among a lot of provinces, as well as other jurisdictions, for coping with the virus. I think also, but what we can see in terms of the dynamic that happened is, the NDP were winning in the Fraser Valley in places that didn't seem to be historically places where the NDP would have seats in the past. Richmond goes to the NDP. We're seeing, just a orange wave, orange crush 2.0. I think that was usually referring to the Jack Layton period for the federal NDP. But certainly this movement to the NDP in historic numbers. North Vancouver, I think the North Vancouver Seymour riding hasn't had anything other than the kind of Free Enterprise Coalition party representing it since 1975. Again, falls to the NDP on Saturday night.
And when we look at the BC Liberals, 29 seats now, that's the lowest since 1991. Obviously, there needs to be some sort of restructuring or rebooting, if you will, of the party. What do you think the strategy should be moving forward for the provincial Liberal Party?
It's a really good question, because the answer is not nearly as clear as it would have been in previous cases. In other times when the NDP formed government, they did so because of a very clear split to the center-right. So, you had Social Credit and the BC Liberals running at the same time, having 50+% of the vote, but splitting it between the two of them and then letting the NDP kind of come up the middle. That's not the case this time. I mean, certainly the BC Conservatives and some independents had an effect in some of those places, like the Valley that I was talking about. That was a very unique dynamic to a handful of ridings in the province, but there's not a clear solution to bring a party back together. And the hardest thing I think they have to deal with is the sort of center part of the coalition, which some federal Liberals and the rest is in real tension with the more to the right part, particularly the socially conservative part. And we saw that dynamic play out during the election. We saw social conservative issues really being the biggest vulnerability for the BC Liberals during the election, and in the end needing to actually get somebody out of the party in the midst of the campaign.
All right, and with respect to the BC Green Party, they secured 3 seats, same as last election, but for the first time, we saw them get a win in off the island with, of course, Jeremy Valeriot securing that West Vancouver Sea to Sky riding. What do you think that represents for the party, and do you think they will be happy overall with the 3 seats, or were they hoping for more?
I mean, I think they can be happy, because they were certainly caught off guard to some degree. I think strategically, tactically, the Premier chose to call this election at a time when the Greens were probably at their weakest, just in terms of organizationally. Just had a new leader, literally for a week. So hanging on to the 3 that they had after 2017, having a strong debate performance from their leader, I think all of those things are positives for the party. I think the continuing challenge for them is how to turn 15% of the vote into something closer to 15% of the seats in the legislature, and they didn't. They had 15 to 17% every last couple of elections, and 3 seats. That's not exactly what you would expect. And of course, they were big proponents of proportional representation, but that didn't happen, and it's probably a moot question for a little while here in BC.
All right. Thanks so much for your time, as always, Gerald.
Okay. Thank you. Good morning.
All right. You take care. That's Gerald Baier from UBC. And coming up, we've got